We all have to make tough calls, right? Moments where it's not at all clear what the right thing to do is. Well, today we're going to build a practical toolkit for exactly those moments. We'll be pulling from, everything from ancient philosophy to modern psychology to get it done.
So let's just dive right in with maybe one of the most famous ethical questions in pop culture. Should Batman kill the Joker? I mean, think about it. He's got him cornered. He knows for a fact that if the Joker lives, more people will suffer and die. So what's the truly right move for a hero in that spot?
And believe it or not, this isn't just a comic book problem. This is the kind of stuff philosophers have been wrestling with for centuries. They've been asking that same basic question: what actually makes an action right or wrong? And lucky for us, they came up with some pretty powerful ways to think it through.
So, we're going to break down 3 of the biggest tools in ethical thinking. And a good way to think of them is like different lenses. You can look at any problem, like Batman's, through each of these lenses, and each one is going to show you something completely different.
Okay, first up, our first lens, utilitarianism. The big idea here, which comes from guys like Jeremy Bentham, is all about getting the greatest happiness for the greatest number. So, from this point of view, you judge an action purely by its results. A utilitarian would probably look at Batman's problem and say, easy, kill the Joker. Why? Because taking one life to save countless others just maximizes the overall good. It's a pretty straightforward, almost brutal calculation.
But now let's switch lenses. Let's look through the lens of deontology, which was championed by Immanuel Kant. Now, for a deontologist, you basically just throw the consequences out the window. They don't matter. What matters are duties and universal rules. And some things, like killing, are just flat out wrong. Period. It doesn't matter if killing one person saves a million others. The act itself breaks a moral law that should never be broken. So from this perspective, there's no way Batman can kill the Joker. Absolutely not.
And our third lens, virtue ethics, which we get from Aristotle, it kind of flips the whole script. It's not about the outcome, and it's not about the rules. It's all about character. The key question here isn't what's the right thing to do. It's what kind of person do I want to be? Does Batman want to be the kind of person who kills his enemies? For him, the answer has always been no. And that right there shows you how virtue ethics puts the focus squarely on who you are as a moral person.
Okay, so we've got these 3 really powerful lenses, but how do they actually connect to our decisions, in real life? Well, the answer is in our own personal moral compass, which is built from a few key ingredients.
This little map here really lays out how our ethics are built from the inside out. See that right in the center? Those are your values. That's the foundation for everything. They would inform your beliefs, which then shape your personal morals, and all of that drives your attitudes and ultimately your actions. It all flows from that core.
But what even are values really? Well, you can think of them as your deepest, most enduring beliefs about the best way to live. They're not just, your favorite color or something. They have a real moral weight to them. That little voice inside that says you should or ought to do something.
And here's something else that's really important to remember. Context is everything. The kind of ethics we use in our private lives, with our friends and family, that can be a bit more flexible. But when you step into a public or a professional role, those standards suddenly become way more rigid. They demand accountability, transparency. You can't just bend the rules in that arena.
All right, so we've got our lenses, we understand how our values work, but our toolkit isn't complete yet. We have to know about the obstacles, these common mind traps or psychological biases that can totally cloud our judgment and trick us into making bad choices, sometimes without us even realizing it.
The first trap is something called cognitive dissonance. You know that really uncomfortable feeling you get, that pit in your stomach, when you're doing something that goes against what you believe in? Yeah, that's cognitive dissonance. So, imagine an officer who personally believes in nonviolence, but his job requires him to order a lathi charge. That intense internal conflict? That's what we're talking about. Next up is a huge one, confirmation bias. Our brains are basically wired to look for information that proves we're right, and to completely ignore anything that might suggest we're wrong. It's like we create this little echo chamber for ourselves, and it's so dangerous because it stops us from ever seeing the whole objective truth.
And finally, there's conformity bias. You can just call it peer pressure. It's that incredibly powerful pull to just go along with what the group is doing, even when our own gut is screaming that something is wrong. We just stop listening to our own judgment and follow the crowd instead. It's like JFK said, this kind of thinking can be the enemy of freedom and real growth.
So, with all these biases trying to trip us up, how do we actually use our ethical lenses and our values correctly? Well, it all comes down to one master tool that ties everything else together: integrity. This is really the ultimate goal of building this whole toolkit.
Integrity isn't just one part of your life. It's really the glue that holds all the different parts of you together. It's what connects your personal ethics with your professional ethics and your institutional ethics, so you have one solid, consistent moral foundation no matter what situation you're in.
So what does integrity actually mean, in simple terms? I think C.S. Lewis just nails it here. He said, integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is looking. It's all about being guided by what's inside you, not by who might be watching you.
And this isn't just some abstract idea. I mean, history is full of amazing examples. You've got Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, who insisted on paying for official gifts out of his own pocket, or T.N. Session, who stood up to incredible political pressure to make sure India's elections were fair. Heck, even ancient thinkers like Kautilya, who reportedly used a different lamp for his personal work versus his official duties. That's what integrity looks like when you actually live.
So, here we are. We started with a superhero's dilemma, and we've ended up with a real-world virtue. We've looked through the lenses of utilitarianism, deontology, and virtue ethics. We've dug into what our values are and how sneaky things like our own biases can trip us up. The toolkit is built. It's yours now. And really, the only question left is, what are you going to use it for?